And here we are live. And just as we live, Joe's connection dropped, but he will be back. Hello, everyone. It is already that time once again for another Animation Nation special that we have here. It's part of our Through the Door month here in February, and you voted on it. And so we are going to talk about it. So we are talking about Coraline, the stop motion animation from Leica Studios. I hope I pronounced that right. My pronunciation is horrible. But yeah, a very interesting film that was directed by the same gentleman who directed Nightmare Before Christmas. Yes, folks, Tim Burton did not direct Nightmare Before Christmas. Let's all put that out there, right? Henry Selick. Selick, thank you, Selick. I always put an N in there. But anyway, yes, folks, another Animation Nation. So we have a wonderful crew tonight to be assembled to talk about this stop motion animation film. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping or whatnot your favorite drink as we talk movie spoilers. And the crew that I have assembled tonight is a fantastic one. It's always fantastic, but extra fantastic because we have an extra person on here tonight. First here with us, he's back with us. Always a pleasure from the establishing shot. It is none other than the talented Jeff York. Hello, Jeff.
Hello, Mark. Nice to see you again, as is the same with Ian and Joe. Always a pleasure to be here.
Always great to have you on the show. And then the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Joe Randazzo, is with us today. Hey, Joe, how you doing, sir? Hope you.
Hey, everyone. And it says I have an unstable internet connection, so hopefully it'll work out.
Well, we're all a bit unstable as it is, so that's kind of fitting. So.
Applying the power of positive murder, Joe.
That's right. And also with us tonight, my right-hand man, though he's to my left on my screen, he keeps coming back for more. It is none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. How you doing, Ian?
I'm great. I'm prepared to be the YB for tonight's episode.
Oh, I figured you warned me. You did warn me ahead of time of your feelings on Coraline. And yet you are still here, so we appreciate it quite a bit. And I appreciate you watching a film you declared you wouldn't watch anymore. So, Jeff,
yes.
Since you are here, sir, and you always do these so well.
Oh, you're the very kindest.
Could you give us a synopsis of Coraline?
Absolutely. Well, this little girl is not Caroline. Her name is Coraline, which is the first tip-off that she's a little bit different. She's 11 years old, and she and her parents have just moved from Pontiac, Michigan into, of all things, the Pink Palace Apartments on the outside of the Ashland, Oregon suburbs, in this old Victorian house that has seen its better days. And it's got some eccentric tenants. And she's trying to find something to get, dare I say, animated about, because she's kind of bored with everything. The neighbors are too old. There's a mysterious black cat that she wonders about, and she meets this kid named YB, who's the landlady's grandson, and he's kind of irritating to her. But she ends up discovering a hidden passageway in the house that leads her to a sort of parallel dimension where there are representatives of her family and members of the apartments. Even the cat and YB show up there in various forms, slightly different. And the sort of crux of it is that this is the more ideal representation of what she wants her family and her environment and stuff to be: more colorful, more imaginative, keeping her interest. The old ladies aren't just old vaudevillians regaling her with stories of when they used to be on the stage, but damn it, in the other world, they are throwing this incredible performance on a vaudeville stage. It looks like it's 400 feet tall, so it's
Yeah.
all kinds of accommodations for imagination. But of course, a lot of times when you think that something's too good to be true, it isn't, and it comes with a price tag. And that's kind of the crux of the story, as she finds out that even though there is an other mother and an other father and other cat and friends, they're not quite as appealing. And that's where I think a lot of this sort of gets its sort of nightmarish horror film vibe from. I mean, even the one could argue the dilapidated house that she moved into is enough to send some people into like, is this a horror movie? I will tell you, I saw this with my ex-wife, and 10 minutes into it, she didn't turn to me and say she was bored like I know you did, Ian, but she turned to me and she goes, "This is scary." It's like, just wait, because I had seen it before. And literally an hour into the 90-minute film, she almost walked out because she was so mad at me. She turned to me and she said, "You said this was going to be fun." I said, "Isn't it fun?" She goes, "It's too scary." And my wife, here's the irony joke, loves horror movies. And every time I would come home from work, she'd be watching one of those A&E documentary specials about some wife who killed her husband. Do you think I knew then that maybe the marriage wasn't going to last? Is this foreshadowing or an invitation to the power of positive murder? But anyway,
actually, my wife calls it an alibi. My wife calls watching the crime shows an alibi.
Blaming A&E. But anyway, so that's kind of the crux of this story.
Yeah, that's a good summary of it. I think this was the first film from Leica Studios that I remember watching. I saw it in theater, but because I was such a huge Nightmare Before Christmas fan and I love stop motion animation, so I remember seeing this in the theater, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it quite a bit because of its surrealism. Maybe not as much for the story because it's one of those things where the story for me felt very familiar, but I'm a big visuals guy. So I remember first watching it and I was like, wow, I'm like, yeah, this is my jam. So much so that I got it on the Blu-ray, DVD, and digital copy release they did here that also came with 4 pairs of 3D glasses. You could watch it in 3D.
Well, it was something to look at. And when it was first released, the reason I went and saw the movie a second time to take my wife to it is the first time I saw it, I don't think it was, I think it was just, there was no film criticism in my life yet, but it was in 3D. And I dare say, other than Avatar, I think it may have been the most, for me anyway, strongly realized 3D film because the perspective of those sets that, clearly they weren't large sets. They were probably only 20 feet by 30 feet or whatever, but they sometimes seemed like they were 100 feet. The depth of focus and field really helped that. Remember that garden when it reveals that it's Coraline's face in the garden? That just on the big screen, that just played like gangbusters. And then these little things fly up in front of you before scattering off in 3D. So, it came off really well in 3D.
Yeah, and this had special features, a lot of them, including picture-in-a-picture and tours and voice sessions. Watch them record them during each
fanning.
And the BD Live option. Remember BD Live? Oh yeah. So this release, is.
Do any of those still work? The Blu-ray Live features? Probably not.
I haven't tried it I did try it because I watched the digital copy for my viewing. So, Joe, you remember when you first saw Coraline?
Initially, when it first came out, in fact, I watched the same 2009 DVD I bought way back then before I even had a player. Liked it then, liked it again. Despite having the DVD now for 17 years, it's the first time I've rewatched it. I had a good time with it again today, even 17 years later. And yeah, it's the visuals. I mean, I remember, like Jeff said, sitting in a theater, seeing this stuff on a huge screen was amazing. It was amazing watching it today. Story-wise, you're right, Mark. It's not much, but it's your basic story. Little girl feels unappreciated, goes into this magical world where she feels appreciated, not realizing she's in danger. But yeah, I felt it still holds up. I'm interested to see what Ian doesn't like about it. I mean, I realize he did mention everything. A couple weeks ago.
Can I just say one?
Did I miss that? Was that while I was rebooting?
Well, as we prepare and gird our loins for Ian's response, I just want to say that I think in defense of the film, I don't disagree that there are certain cliches in it and things that we can criticize about it. At the Annie Awards that year, which was actually a big year for animated movies, there were a lot of good ones that year. But this one for Best Musical Score, production design, and character design. I mean, those are three pretty prestigious awards in the Annies. So, but I mean, that production design, I have to say, I remember being a little miffed when the Oscar nominations came out that year. Like, can't they nominate an animated movie? Well, yes, they can. They nominated Avatar and all that stuff. I don't know how that qualifies as cinematography, but anyway. But this one I thought should have been nominated for production design because I just love the way the houses looked and the different bric-a-bracs and even the way the food looked in the fantasy version, like the dad just piling waffles on top of pancakes, just somebody said, let's add a little more heaping helping to that hospitality there.
So Ian,
yeah,
and we've built this up, but you actually watched it a second time for the show, which I appreciate. But please, what was it that struck you that you just didn't care for with Coraline when you first saw it? And I'm assuming your rewatch wasn't much better. So,
no, I mean the rewatch was excruciating, almost as much as the first time I saw it. Look, I'm a big Neil Gaiman fan. I may have read Coraline when it first came out, 25 years ago. I don't remember much about the story. I know the YB character was not in the book. So Selleck and company, they took some liberties with the adaptation as people always do. But my biggest problem, and I have this problem with all of Laika's films. I don't like any of the Laika films that I've seen. I've seen them all in the theater. I'm a fan of, I really appreciate what they put into these. I mean, Selleck and his team worked 3.5 years on Coraline alone. And within, I think, 3 years, they came out with the Box Trolls and then Kubo and the Two Strings. So they are dedicated. I'm not going to take anything away from them. The problem is these movies are all north of an hour and a half long, but they only have really about 15 to 20 minutes worth of story that's worth telling. And in the case of Coraline, it's doing your show, Mark, has really helped put into stark relief one of my big problems with this is, you talk about Return to Oz, you talk about Alice in Wonderland, which we talked about recently. Coraline as a character is just this girl who goes into this land of terrors and is not fazed by anything. She has no reaction. She's too cool for school. Like, I'm not creeped out or scared by anything because she's not. There is a better version of this movie, and it's called Inside Out, complete with the girl moving to the big house with the parents who are kind of unavailable because they've got their own thing going on. She's got friends back home that she looks at in a photograph. It's practically the same photograph of her friends back home who are playing hockey, and she wishes she were back there with them. Except in Inside Out, she, what's going on inside Riley's head is a bona fide emotional journey full of tears and fears and tears for fears. Not literally.
Everybody wants to rule the world.
Right. Well, but with Coraline, I'm watching it and it's just weird things popping up all over the place. And if it weren't for if this were, I think 90% of the fascination with this movie is the fact that it is handcrafted stop motion animation. I think if it didn't, and I'm going to say that for all of Laika's films, I think if this were just a CGI film, it would be very forgettable because it's very Tim Burton. It's not even really that Neil Gaiman. It's more Tim Burton than Neil Gaiman by way of Henry Selick, because Burton tends to have more intelligence, more of a character journey, more of a reason to get invested than this movie. I mean, what happens in this film? She discovers this alternate world. She's not fazed by anything until the day after she's been going there forever with her alternate parents with the creepy button eyes. They say, hey, you can stay here forever. And she's like, great, but we have to sew these buttons onto your eyes. And then she realizes there's a problem, that something's amiss. And then there's all this stuff like the creepy needle fingers and this. But I couldn't tell you what really happened in the last 20 minutes of this film because it's all just a melange of stuff. And you talk about the 3D in this movie. I hated the 3D in the theater. I hate, again, watching it, especially on Blu-ray, because without the benefit of watching it with 3D glasses, it does that really annoying thing that all bad 3D movies do, which is like, look what's coming at the camera. Instead of, Jeff, to your point with the Avatar thing, what James Cameron did with that is he said, okay, I'm going to do something unexpected with my 3D. There are those kind of moments where there's something big coming at you in the frame, but there's also the fireflies, the things like, you kind of find yourself subconsciously like
the depth as opposed to something coming right at your eyes, which is a little cliche.
Right. I mean, I think one of the best uses of 3D wasn't even an effect, a deliberate effect, but it was in the My Bloody Valentine 3D remake when you get a shot of that mine stretching out almost to infinity, and you feel like you could just get up out of your seat and walk down that tunnel. Yeah, I just find Coraline, sorry, to be very boring, and that's why I'm gonna jump in when I have something to say, but I don't really have much to say, so I'm fine with letting you guys have an appreciation fest. I'll just be over here in the corner.
Well, I think I agree with you about some of those moments where it's clearly cliche 3D, but I think the three dimensionality of bringing out the depth of those sets, which do have a certain amount of shadow, because they're not just they're, for lack of a better term, theatrical already, so they have a little bit more of a separation from sort of typical context of a film shot, and it's a different style of film and lighting anyway. I thought that really enhanced the 3D experience and gave 3D a reason to be here. But so often, to your point, other than Avatar and maybe most of this film, 3D is designed to be hokey and to be something that comes at you like, oh, watch out, here comes that ping pong ball, or jump scares a go-go from the Vincent Price over in the 50s.
Treasure of the Seven Crowns that I saw, or Five Crowns, 7, 5. Treasure, I saw it in the theater because that was when the 3D boom was big again in the 80s when it was coming back. And it was one of the few original films that had 3D. Most of them were sequels that if you had 3 in the title, it was going to be 3D. That's just what was going to happen. But I remember that had probably the most cliche moment for 3D, and it had one of those old school popcorn poppers to where it had like the 5-foot long or 4-foot long handle, and it has the pot on the end of it, for just sticking it in the fire for popping. They had it so it was hanging on the wall, and the handle comes straight down, so like it's right at your nose. And that was one of those things for with the 3D cliche. I guess I didn't notice that as much with Coraline, but maybe I was just enjoying the visuals too much to really notice any of the too much of the cliche 3D in it. But I get what you're saying. Thinking back at it, I can see that for sure.
I didn't notice them either, but I will give Ian credit. He is consistent, because this is exactly his criticism of Return to Oz, is that you have Dorothy seeing all this weird stuff that should terrify her, and she's completely unfazed by it. So I will say that I do agree with him on that note, that maybe emotionally would have been more resonant had Coraline actually reacted to these things. And there is one thing. Coraline Jones, is that a take on Carolyn Jones, original Morticia Addams?
You were breaking up there a little bit, Joe.
He was wondering if it was a parody of Caroline
Jones,
who played Morticia in the Addams Family. I don't think so, but that's a good question. It's pretty close.
That is pretty close on that. And yeah, I mean, as far as the story, watching it again, I do enjoy it more for the art and the visuals than the story. And having watched Alice in Wonderland and having watched a few of these other films especially just in the last year, revisiting some of these ones where it involves a child protagonist and having them not, taking things fairly in stride. On one hand, I totally get the criticism, but just talking about it right now, and maybe it's me taking that puddle and stretching it out to a lake, and Jeff definitely has the experience, and Joe, you as well, with writing scripts and such. Maybe they do that because this is somewhat geared towards a younger audience, and maybe by having a kid, the protagonist, be not afraid of the environment, their thinking is that it would help the younger audience members of the audience, maybe not be as afraid of the things that they're showing, so that maybe they could enjoy the film.
That's probably the thinking, but the funny thing about that is history is not on their side.
Right.
Like, people have opted for making it scary as hell for kids. They love it. I mean, and you watch The Wizard of Oz, I cannot believe that they got away with some of the stuff they did in that movie. I mean, just the witch character alone is terrifying. And even the mocking, like when she goes, yeah, I'm frightened, and come home in the ball. And then she turns into the evil witch and she looks right out of the audience and basically says, you. You're just like, yes. It's like, wow, that's so mean. And yet there it is. I mean, Walt Disney famously had to reupholster Radio City Music Hall after the premiere of Snow White because the kids peed the seats after the evil queen turned into the much uglier witch. I think you're right. There's a need for her to be more frightened and yet be allured, still drawn to that because it is at least exciting. Like maybe that's a little too much psychology for kids. But I'll tell you the one thing where I think Ian has a good point, and I did not notice this, maybe because it was the first blush of me watching it when I saw it. But there are scenes where you can see the artists getting off on this stuff by creating it. And yet, if you were a storyteller, you'd either cut that scene or you'd cut 5 minutes out of it. Case in point, when the two old ladies are on stage and they're singing the Broadway ditties, and one looks like Venus and she's got the most, it looks like, where's that third boy from Jaws? Because you're carrying two of them. It's fantastic visually. It's hilarious. It's dirty, all that kind of stuff. But it isn't frightening. And it should be. It should be weird that the dogs are all in the audience, and there's now 1,000 dogs versus the 3 that we saw before. And it should be creepy that this thing is such a big stage, and like that doesn't seem like a normal world. That isn't their apartment. Where am I? All that stuff should be played up here, and it isn't. And even when they're doing the musical number, and the thing goes awry, and then they come out their younger self, and they, you get those kind of slightly scary scenes where are they going to fall, and they're so far up there. That stuff should be more fantastical, but also starting to be scary as hell. And I don't know if it ever really gets there outside of, when the other mother kind of starts her spiel, and when she pulls out the box of they don't tell you we're going to have to take your other eyes out to put in just the, they don't want to say that, probably too much for the kids. You can see the studio guy saying, we're not going to talk about eye gouging, are we? No. Well, the kids will get it without having to be that explicit. But I think that I wish this was actually scarier. And I mean, my ex aside, it's so fantastical and wonderful and charming. But like that musical number, that goes on at least 3 minutes too long. They should have just, here they are performing. Oh, isn't it a wonderful world? These two old ladies that you laughed at and thought were just these crazy women actually had some talent. I think it would have been more interesting if she saw them in their ideal state when they were younger and were on the stage. Maybe that would have been better just to start there. And so they were seen as not these people so out of reach of Coraline's relatability. But yeah, I mean, I think this could have been an hour, and it's an hour and a half. And usually in most of the days, back in those days, I mean, I think Jungle Book was 110 minutes or something like that. I mean, they tend to be fairly short. And then they started getting them longer with The Little Mermaid, but they did a full musical, with 10 songs. But I think Ian has a good point there too, I dare say, and that I think that this could have just moved faster and been more scary and used some of that more effectively. Is it a great scene to create this expansive theater? Yes. To the artist's eye, absolutely. To the audience eye, I don't know if all that was crucial.
Well, I think, I don't necessarily have a problem with anything visually in the movie because, again, I start off by conceding it's terrific to look at, and they put a lot into this. In terms, visual creativity and everything, I just think that it needed to be tied into the script. Like, I kept wondering, why am I watching what I'm watching for as long as I'm watching it? What do these two old ladies have to say about Coraline or the world that they're inhabiting or anything? If they had been tied into,
life lessons or something.
Right. Like, they represent Coraline's inability to make friends. And it's like, well, if you don't make friends, you're going to end up like this, these weird has-been performers who can only, talk to their dogs or something as simplistic as that. But the same thing with Wybie. I mean, this movie has the Wybie character with this weird 3 green lensed skull mask with the rotating cameras on it. And that's in the real world.
Right.
I'm like, I don't understand.
Yeah, it's too
They
weird.
spent 3.5 years on this animation and about 3 days on the story, and then they just kind of ran with it. We're going to be talking about a movie coming up that I think I mentioned Inside Out, but I think the closer parallel, and it's what the movie I'm going to mention has it over everything that we've talked about with Alice in Wonderland, Return to Oz, and this movie, and that's Pan's Labyrinth, because it is a movie that's geared towards adults. I mean, it's rated R and it's very violent, but in terms of the character of that little girl and the journey she goes through and what we see her go through, and the creatures and the problems that she has to face in that movie all means something to her story and circumstances. Why can't we get that here? And that's I'm a big script guy. And that's my criteria. And that's why when I watch a lot of animated films, particularly ones from Leica, for whatever reason, I keep giving them chances because I love the artistry of it. I just wonder, why is it that I check out 20 minutes into every Leica film, and at the end I'm like, there are 2 other movies that I've never seen that I should have been watching instead of this film.
Well, that's interesting too, because that's the problem with all Tim Burton's films. It's, again, he's an animator, he's an illustrator, he's an artist, and that doesn't necessarily lead to storytelling. When Pixar first came out, the reason that they stood out so much is story was key. Granted, their CGI look was mesmerizing and everybody still copies it today, but they led with story. Those would have been great stories if they could have found another way to do them other than animation. Here, some of the stuff is like, that would not be interesting if it wasn't animated. And I think that's your difference.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that, though. I'll disagree a little bit with Tim Burton, but that's because I love my Tim Burton movies. But
well, I mean,
I fully agree. I fully agree. Not all of them are
Burton,
great.
though.
I think he's better with his original stuff, and especially his earlier stuff than his IP stuff. I will fully admit that. That I think he tells a better story visually and just cinematically when it's his script. But we have a number of indie filmmakers out there that have made it big, that I think their best product is when they're directing their own stuff. Send help, Raimi. But anyway,
well, Raimi, I feel like he's fallen into that one for the studio, one for me thing that a lot of these directors seem to fall into. I'll make your movie, fine, but I need you to fund this one that I want to make.
And that's what Burton has, like, he fully admitted. That's why he did Returns. He didn't want to do a sequel to Batman Returns. And then it was like they were throwing shit ton of money at him, and he'd be dumb to turn it down. He's like, okay. And then he takes that money and, then he can make his own film.
Which, I mean, ironically, there's a lot of people that would put Batman Returns above Batman 89 in terms of like characterization and all this other stuff. So it's sometimes it works out when you're kind of, I mean, not to say he had a gun to his head because he took the money, but for Batman Returns does not play like a movie made by someone who didn't want to make it.
Right. True enough. But yeah, with Coraline, the story, I think, and I know what you guys are saying, but I mean, for me, I liked her exploration into the world. Watching it back to back with Alice in Wonderland, which we watched last week, is very similar in a lot of ways, including your Cheshire Cat, which, hey, voiced by Keith David. I want a cat that talks like Keith David.
If your cat starts talking like Keith David, Mark, it's time for an intervention.
No, it's time to get him his own YouTube channel because he'll probably get more views than I do.
Well, the other thing that's interesting, and I hate to be siding a little bit more with Ian on this because I do love this film and I see things differently by and large. But I will say this, having not watched this probably for, 5-6 years, I didn't find anything in her world to be boring. I mean, because it looks so interesting through the lens of stop motion and the production design. I found that all very interesting. So like when she's on board, I mean, I know she's in that world and we don't even stop to ask about those things. But that to me was very interesting. In fact, I find that world as intriguing, certainly as a viewer watching it, because, it's interesting to see her parents aren't happy. They're under great duress as they're trying to get these catalog pages typed out of their computer. And the color palette in town is even sort of dull yellows and browns and fading grays. But it's interesting. It looks fantastic. I mean, I grant you, some of the stuff is wonderful, and it's like the garden in that caterpillar kind of machine that not only walks and hoes, but then it flies and stuff. But yeah, it has some. Again, it's too fun to look at, even though Coraline finds this tremendously boring. I mean, just the way that cat moves around in the first 10, 15 minutes. I'd watch that cat all day long,
Well, it's interesting you say. I didn't think about this, Jeff, until you mentioned something like she's bored, which is, kind of strange because she lives in a house that has internet.
Mm-hmm.
And this world that she goes into, we're meant to believe is an actual alternate dimension. Like there have been other kids who've died there and everything. So it's not even a situation where with the Wizard of Oz, at least the original 39 version, you can argue it was, Dorothy got knocked around and, she dreamt the entire thing.
Right.
The sequels and the books and everything were led to believe that it is an actual place that she visits and it's got its own internal logic. And the same thing with Alice in Wonderland. She kind of falls asleep under that tree and she dreams that she goes after that rabbit and she wakes up. In this movie, Coraline goes into this other place that exists completely outside of her. And she's also a character who's very bored. So it's not like she's bored, so she comes up with this world of imagination.
Mm-hmm.
She just has no interior monologue. She's just it's like that song from, what was that? Harvey Danger. If you're bored, then you're boring. Like she's like a completely point A to point A.1 protagonist.
Yeah, in fact, there's nothing boring about any of this, and that's the thing that pushes her to want to go somewhere else. I think there's also parental rejection, and she doesn't have the best relation. Mom's kind of a pickled pill, in the first part, and so she doesn't seem very loving or nice to her. But you're right, she shouldn't be bored at all. And hey, here comes Wybie, and he's got this cool doodad on his face, but she doesn't want to give him the time of day. It's like, hey, he's a kid, he's your age, he's riding around on a mountain bike. It looks like he knows he's doing this, and has got all these gadgets that you should like. And
right, like
that seems to disappear behind signs, and like he's walking here and then he's over there, and like all cats, he's mysterious. What's not a kid to love? Come on, Coraline, you're the boring one.
Well, you've got a deep ass well in the backyard,
and her parents let her dye her hair blue. Come on.
Well, I mean, let's just talk about that Wybie thing for a second. You meet a kid in the neighborhood who's got a skull helmet with rotating green lensed cameras on it, right?
Yep.
How did you build that, Wybie? Do you have a magical, like a special workshop where you build all this cool stuff? What other things have you made? Maybe we can build something together. But that doesn't even occur to her. He's just like the weird dork that she's just, too above to really talk to, until literally in the alternate version of the world, he can't talk, and that's the only way he's really useful to her. The more I think about this movie, the less I like it, and the more, Mark, I vowed in 2009 that I would never watch this movie again. I watched it for your show, and now that I have, now I can say I never need to watch it again, nor will I. So thank you.
Yep. Well, fair enough. No, you are right. They could have taken the story in some interesting direction sooner, namely making the quest for the kids' spirits happen sooner.
See, I also think that's the. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
Go ahead, Joe.
Oh no, go ahead. I didn't realize where I'm. I think I'm lagging. I don't know where I'm coming in anymore.
Oh, you're coming.
It sounds like I feel like I'm cutting people off.
Oh no,
so I don't
you're good. You're good yet. But
the one thing I was just going to say is in this year, Ian, you're going to love me even more. That's the one part of the movie I didn't like as much. I'd forgotten that as well. That's right. She has to do the big thing, and this is like the studio thing, I'm sure. Well, at least they turned it into too big of her saving the other kids and sort of this. So she seems like she's the idea of maturity is that she thinks outside of herself, which is to me the cliche version of maturity. But I think they establish better themes here that by and large they keep throughout, but I think they belie them a little bit at the end. But I mean, I think for starters, the whole parental attention to a child when a child wants attention. Same with a pet. If you're going to have a pet, you have to pay attention to the pet. There's a cliche, I grant you it's a meme, but it goes like, a dog may or a cat may be one of 100 things in your world, but you are the only thing in that dog's world. So you better pay attention here. They want to be parents, and yet they're rude to her. I'm working, and this, and they feed her slop and all that. I mean, I think that's a very strong theme. It obviously pushes her more towards the other mother. But then I also think, they kind of quickly gloss over some things that they could have made more better, because I think the themes are here, and they sacrifice a little bit of it for the ending of her saving the kids. For example, like when she doesn't want the eyes. Yes, of course, it's like, oh, I'm going to lose my eyes. It doesn't prevent them from seeing in the new world. But this is really a metaphor for, letting somebody else define who she is. She still doesn't know who she is, but she knows she doesn't want the button eyes. That's a very important thing, I think, for children, as they see examples of them. Oh, be more like your older brother. Be like these pillars of society, these people we qualify as heroes, or our parents, grandma, whatever. And the other one, too, is I think they kind of totally whiff that doll, like, is the very first thing we see being constructed in this film. And it's supposed to be the spy for the other mother, but it isn't done as well. And I think the idea of, sort of being betrayed by somebody you think is an ally or looking out for your best interest through that prop, I think they could have done a little bit more with that as well. So some of that kind of stuff gets sacrificed, telling other parts of the story, watching the flea circus, which I think is the most boring part of the thing. I'm not as convinced that even needed to be in here. I think you could have had the two old ladies in the one apartment and that was it. But, some of those things are there, and they're very well played up when they play them up, but they don't play them up enough, I think.
Well, Jeff, there's two things I want to touch on that they mentioned there. I think they're good points. The idea of the I'm trying to remember exactly how you phrased it, but Coraline, like, not having a good sense of herself, and then having these eyes stitched into. How did you put that?
Yeah,
refresh me, because
I think that it seems like, oh, she's going to lose her eyes and it's going to be painful and all that, but we see them seeing with these eyes, which is not the same thing. I think it's about refusing to let others sort of
define who she is, right? Yes, that's what I wanted to pick up on.
Yeah,
I would buy that if, as we established, she was a bit more uncertain or tentative of a character. She is the same at the beginning of this movie as she is at the end of this movie, at least in temperament.
Yeah.
She might have learned some kind of a lesson of, like, I guess I need to appreciate my parents' eye roll, but she's not dramatically different. Now, and I love what you're saying there as far as the theme. I want to see that. And I think that, again, not to keep bringing up Inside Out, but that's, Riley does learn something along kind of those lines in that film, in terms of accepting at least not being defined by other people, but not being defined by her circumstance, right? Now, the other thing here, in terms of the parents are a big problem for me because, okay, I'll bring up Inside Out again. It's the parents moving into the new house with their single kid, and they're very busy, and she's kind of left on her own, and she's depressed, and she doesn't know how to make friends, and all that stuff, triggering all this stuff going on with their inner life and the different aspects of her personality, duking it out. But at least there is an explanation as to why these parents had a kid in the first place. Mm-hmm. They clearly love Riley. It's just that the dad has been he's been forced to move to this city because of his big job that's very demanding. It forces him away from the family. Right. The mom is trying to set up new life in a big city, so she's constantly busy all the time, but they keep going back to Riley and trying to reassure and comfort her, but being like, sorry, we've got stuff we have to take care of. In Coraline, I have no indication that these parents ever had passion for anything aside plants. I don't believe that they ever loved each other, and I don't understand why they would have had children. It almost seems like Coraline was an accident. There's no loving instinct. There's no, like, we're sorry, we're really busy. They are literal cartoon characters meant to represent an idea that the writer, either Gaiman or Selick, had in their head, but I don't think it speaks enough to the specifics of what a neglected child would go through, because there's always some kind of dimension to that parent-child relationship. Whereas here it's just like, oh, the parents are, jerks and they're busy all the time, so she feels neglected, which opens up all these other questions we've asked, like, why doesn't she have her own inner life, or why doesn't she go and find these other things to do? The whole plot of the film is centered around external forces dragging her into something instead of her taking some initiative.
Well, and to that point, if you don't mind me just saying real fast, Mark and Joy, I don't want to step on your thoughts here, but please show them a second. But to that very point, I think this is the key in those first opening minutes when you establish why somebody has a relationship to somebody else the way they do. Now, you can say that they're busy and it's new and they're exhausted and all that, and they don't even like themselves very much. Maybe so. It doesn't read for kids. It doesn't read very clearly for even adults sometimes because it's not tangible. You can touch it, but the kid is tired too. The kid is having to open up boxes and get her house help set too. Why is she any different? It has to be something unique. And I'll give you the one that I think does it brilliantly. And it's so funny because it's sort of ground zero for all this. But The Wizard of Oz. What's the first problem in The Wizard of Oz? Dorothy's dog. And Dorothy's dog is going to get them in trouble with the woman who runs the county. This is the Depression. They're lucky to have a farm. And she's now threatened their lives with her love for the dog. And so she's a problem. And that's one of the reasons she leaves. Now that to me is kind of genius because it's like, what does Auntie M say right before she starts singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow? Can't you go somewhere where you aren't any trouble? Like you're trouble, girl. Don't like you because you're trouble. And we got to get these chicks counted so we can make money and put food in your mouth. And you're worried about this scrappy little dog. Now, I grant you as a kid, you're like, oh, totally, so cute. We don't do that. But there's the rub right there. If they had Coraline here, like, you know what? I let you color your hair blue. And I gave you this, and you're never happy. You say you're so smart and you're bored. Well, your quote, if the parent said, the only person who's bored is somebody whose self is boring. I challenge you to become unboring, Coraline. And
you could.
Yourselves. That would have been fascinating. And then the cat could come in. She's right, If you just watched me, you would have wondered, am I an alien? Do I serve him gasoline at the end and see if he drinks it like it's a beer?
Jeff, if you were to remake Coraline, I will watch it.
Yes, I will do the voice of the cat.
Joe, what do you think? Joe, what do you think with the parents? Did they go a little too extreme with them and just not establish this enough relationship with them? They kind of do just touch on it and then go on to her going to the world again.
These are criticisms that Ian raises that are legit. I was kind of blind to them. I'm completely on board and agree with them on it. They do seem more like caricatures, but I think that, like you said earlier, I think when I think of this movie, I think more of the visuals of it, and I don't think as much of the story. I don't think as much in terms of whether or not these are fully fleshed out characters. And I've never read it. I've never read Neil Gaiman's. I don't know if is it a novel, novella, short story. I don't know.
It's a novel, but it's like a short. It's like a kid's novel. It's 120 or 200 pages, something like that.
Oh, okay, yeah, I've never read it, so I don't know if they're better fleshed out in there than they are here. But yeah, I do kind of agree with Ian on it. That they do kind of seem more like caricatures than real characters. But again, I wonder if that's because this is aimed at kids, and I wonder if that's the thought process here is that we have to simplify everything, and characters can't be too complex, because I feel like that's something 40, 50 years ago they gave us more complex characters in kids movies. Maybe they don't as much anymore.
Well, no, yeah, that's a hot topic, and we even talked when we did here on the spoiler room, pardon my shill, but way back in some of our earlier episodes, we did a couple series on dark children's stories, from most of them from the 80s, like Dark Crystal, Labyrinth, Never-Ending Story. You look at those stories, and they did not shy away from the dark, meaty stuff for the kids. They're intended for kids. Heck, I'll even go so far as the movie Explorers, which I don't think people talk about enough. I love Explorers. We talked about it on the show here too. Explorers is weird, but it pardon the pun, it explores some of those topics that, kids face, but it doesn't boil it down to the very basic like Coraline does. That was the thing that I had with the parents was in this one. I didn't remember that part of it when rewatching it. I didn't remember the angle at the very beginning of just how extreme they made the parents' neglect of Coraline.
Yeah,
I remember
one note. It's very one note.
Very one note, very, on one hand, I could almost see two of them doing it going, oh, look, we're being topical because it's 2009 and computers and the mom's got a flip phone. Google it, folks. And,
But the interesting thing about it too, and this gets into a far deeper topic, but it might be one worth exploring because I think it's so true in most kids' movies, is you will get parents and studio heads who will say, well, remember, this is for kids. No, it isn't. It's for human beings. And adults often come to the movies with the kids, and kids pick up on a lot of stuff early on. I'll give you one example just quickly about The Wizard of Oz again. I don't mean to necessarily always highlight that one, but out of the same mouth that just not 5 to 10 minutes ago said that Margaret Hamilton's witch was such a cackling fiend and it just nasty as hell. I mean, like just pure evil, almost like, up there with like a Charles Manson kind of, serial killer, Anton Sugar kind of aspect to her. Like, wow, what the heck? And yet she has every right to get mad. Dorothy, in her eyes, is a murderer. She killed her sister. And Glinda, great enabler, covers it up, steals the shoes, gives them to Dorothy, and Dorothy's the innocent person. And God knows Judy Garland is so wonderful. But I think as a kid, you pick up on that. Like there's okay, it's there. And even if the studio heads think, well, this is black and white, it really isn't. And I think whenever you underestimate the intelligence of children or try to present them to somebody, I mean, another aspect that they could have, like, what if mom and dad didn't have a good marriage? And this move hopefully was going to save it. And this combined project of the catalog maybe was the thing to bring them together again, just like a baby's always going to. And people decide to have a baby as the last straw before they divorce. And then Coraline's unsure what to say, and she's affected, and she just wants to escape this thick tension all the time. Show me that. That in 2009 would have struck a hell of a lot more kids than, oh, I'm a bored kid. I've never known a bored kid.
Well, again, Jeff, a couple of things. You mentioned the dyed blue hair and this being, the computer kind of generation. How old am I sounding right now? She would have been an artist. There should have been scraps of paper and projects all over her room. Absolutely. Even if she had like boxes of stuff from back home, she had to like open up and all that. Yes. But the other thing is, I love what you're saying about the troubled marriage, because it's right there. The parents are working in separate rooms in different parts of the house on the same project, and they have to come together because maybe this is the only thing that's going to keep. Maybe they didn't move to a new house. I know I'm rewriting the entire story, but maybe this project, this grant or whatever, is the only thing that's going to keep their family afloat. But they're also at each other's throats, and at the end, they come together to build this beautiful thing. And somehow Coraline learns a lesson in this other world that helps bring them together, or maybe even come to grips with the fact that they're not going to make it. But just add one layer below the surface, and this would have been a captivating movie, because that one layer would have informed everything else in the story and given all these visual elements a reason to be there, other than, hey, look what we can spend 3.5 years on.
Yeah, that's
Last
true.
thought on that too. Anytime there's a brat, you could say, well, Coraline needs to be knocked down a few pegs. She's kind of a brat. She needs to appreciate what she's got. If you look up most reviews, I'll bet if you ask, what are those, Gogi or Grog? What are those things that they have now in AI that immediately says something up for you? Grok. That's a Grok. Yeah. Must have been thinking of Mugu. Rogu. Can't they just say Baby Yoda? Come on. Anyway, they find these basic themes and stuff like she's a brat, but wouldn't it have been more interesting if she was, she was acting out and sometimes moody because she was affected by her parents or something else that was like that. Even if you see a bully who you dislike and want to discipline him and have him stop hitting somebody in school, I bet you 9 times out of 10 that bully is being hit by somebody at home. Mm-hmm. Or been treated that way. People just don't turn bad like they're, some sort of crazy thing out of somebody's imagination in a fictional story like The Bad Seed or something. They are usually a reflection of something else. That in 2009, for these people to not realize they could do that in a kid's movie like they did in Pixar and some of the things there is bullshit.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, it's really weird in the late aughts how it seemed like kids' movies kind of took a right turn and they kind of watered them down. I mean, Joe, would you say that as well? Like with the movies geared towards kids really seem to be drawn to the basics, and maybe it was because of real world being far more scary, because we're talking, a few years, you had 9/11 and that, but
The crash, the economy.
Are crash of the economy, are they thinner than the 80s and say early 90s?
Well, yeah, I mean the crash of the economy happened right before this movie came out, so that definitely could be part of it. But I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't really. I don't know, like when the tide kind of started to shift on that, because I wasn't really paying that close attention. It's just now that I go back and look at them, especially in the last couple of months, because we did do Return to Oz and Alice in Wonderland and all this stuff. It does. I mean, even when I think of like Watcher in the Woods, when I think of those, like a lot of those 80s Disney movies, they were terrifying for a kid.
Darby O'Gill and the Little People. Oh my God!
Black
The
Hole.
Banshee scene in Darby O'Gill, the Little People used to scare the shit out of me, to where like I would leave the room if that movie was on and that Banshee was. I knew when it was coming, I would leave the room.
How about the Child Snatcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang? As sugar high and diabetic that film is, when that Child Snatcher shows up, it's like, what in the hell? Even Benny Hill quaked and quivered at that one.
Let's wind it back to Pinocchio. Freaking Donkey Island, where the kids go to spin and they turn into a donkey because they were smoking and drinking.
Clearly written by a woman who said, when men smoke and drink too much, they turn into assholes.
Well, that might be partially true, but I mean, they didn't shy away from showing kids going, hey, and yet in here, you are right, Ian, you mentioned it, that Coraline doesn't really have a huge arc in this. And for me, rewatching it, a lot of what would be interesting is loaded on the back end of this film, not at the front end or even in the middle. The back end is like, the chase for the kids' souls, finding her parent, rescuing her parents. You find out about, the witch. I mean, all of those things. And then you even see Coraline thinking maybe a little bit outside of just for her. All of that happens in like the last 15 minutes of this movie.
Right. And they don't have anything to do with the first hour and 25 minutes.
You're right.
Yep. We do have a couple questions here real quick. Billy Judd asked, thanks for asking the question, was Coraline originally going to be a live action film? Indeed it was, according to the trivia on the Ibidim. Apparently it would have been a live action film with Dakota Fanning as the physical Coraline.
Oh, wow.
But then it was decided to do stop motion. Fanning was asked if she could still be interested in the project as Coraline's voice, because she thought it would be fun. But apparently, yes, they initially were going to do this as live action, which would have been fully capable in 2009. I mean, set designs and everything.
And you know what? I think Terry Hatcher could have worked really well as the evil mom with the button eyes.
Oh, yeah.
More so than the puppet.
Absolutely.
Well, but she was an actress of some merit, and she played different colors and different shadings and stuff. And even her other mother isn't evil until really she turns into the spindly old thing at the end. I mean, even asking for the button. See, that's a very subtle thing too. She's just saying, it's kind of like a mom saying, "My way, their highway, my house, my rules," that kind of stuff. Maybe they'll do a live action. That would be interesting to see if they could do a 4-hour version of this or a 2-hour version of it, just as a movie with, maybe less production design, but maybe more clear stakes.
Well, with streaming studios going on, I couldn't see, you could see now them easily doing a live action version of this with the sets and everything. And then you get the, volume in there or whatever. And you could definitely pull it off, I think. And you might get a little bit more of that.
It would have to be under a different name, because unfortunately, with the stories that have come out about Neil Gaiman in the last 5 years or so, it's not going to.
It would have to come out under a different name, for sure. But yeah, it's an interesting movie artistically, more so than story wise.
Well, they set a lot of stuff up beautifully with all the visuals, and I mean that Keith David character is fun, and the old ladies, and I mean I love those torpedo boobs of hers, and I mean, but there's another thing, like Coraline says, is she naked? Like kids think nudity is funny. They'd love that.
Oh yeah,
you know.
Kids think nudity is funny, and fart jokes as well. There weren't enough fart jokes in here. No, but I just kid. But you know what's interesting too is they didn't play to the aspect, but it's something I noticed with this rewatch is everybody's artistic in here.
Yeah.
And they don't lean into what you were talking about. I think either Ian or Joe or Jeff, I apologize who may have mentioned it, but you're right. She wouldn't be bored because you've got all these art. Everything is art. You've got a guy upstairs who is holding a circus, trying to put together a circus, who himself, you could tell, is a performer of some sort or a former Russian performer. You have the ladies downstairs who were probably looked like vaudeville act or something along that lines, to where they were stage performers. You have the grandma who is alluded to that she's an artist of some kind. When they go to the plant shop, you have two guys, buskers, outside performing music. Everything around Coraline, not in the fake world, but the real world, there's artists.
It's fascinating. How dare you, you dumb kid? You should be seen and not heard.
It's like the Thornton Mellon line in Back to School, where he's talking to Adrian Barbeau. He's like, "You've got 17 closets full of nothing to wear."
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, they could have leaned into more of that aspect, or show the grandma sooner. Wybie refers to his grandma like 5 times. I mean, if I was Coraline and I was starting to see the shit, I would say, "Hey, can I meet your grandma so I could talk to her about all this weird shit that I've just been seeing in the house? And why the hell you have a doll that fucking looks like me?"
Can I also ask you guys a question, since you have kids? But I know, Joe, are you single?
No, I do not have kids.
Okay, you and the lower tier. We're like the Charles Nelson Riley of the game show panel.
I like being the fun uncle. I'm fine with that.
I'll bet you're the most fun uncle. Everybody wants to have Uncle Joe over.
The Funkle.
There you go.
Yes, the Funkle.
But I think kids at that age, if she's supposed to be 11, I think they find adults a little bit more intriguing than that, especially with, to your point, Mark, the background in their story. Oh, you did an animal act with fleas? What? I got to see that. I think kids would be more intrigued by that. They wouldn't be bored by that. Or, hey, this is an old house, count to those. And she's like bored, counting and writing down ugly old this, ugly old that. No, she could. And then, what if she said, "I want to paint this room and do a mural," to your point, Ian? I mean, every kid, I think they have the artist beat out of them from life, by the time most of them are 15. But before that, every kid is artistic. They love to draw. They're drawing all the time. They're putting pictures on the fridge for mom and dad. Show me that person. Why isn't she more intrigued?
Yeah, I'm not sure, and I think that we've touched on it, a lot of elements tonight, but I think that's part of the core of this film is your main character is written almost too extreme. Like, you're just like, I understand it's animation and this is a fantastical world, but she's written almost too not realistic. Yeah. Like, give her at least a little something. Make it so that her parents are scientists and she's an artist, and her parents aren't interested in her artwork and that, but she's surrounded by all these artists in the Pink Palace, and she shows them and they show interest. Something you could have done more with her character outside of just bored preteen.
Yeah.
We do have a couple other questions that I don't know if I'm going to put those up there. The one, though, he did say Joe Funkle for the
I'm going to give Ian a compliment. This is the first time in a live show that if I had to star rate this movie, it would have dropped a star.
Wow, look at that. Look at Ian, he's infecting everyone with his...
I don't want to take credit for that. I don't know.
Well, no, I think you got me thinking about it. I came to it
No.
on my own volition, but you raised some very good points. It's like, yeah, Coraline, the main character, she's the problem. She's the boring one. Everybody else is an artist. They're creating this doodad with cameras on it, and still playing with fleas, and having training dogs around and managing to walk around with those big heaving bosoms. Come on, what has Coraline got going for her? It's all artificial. Oh, you're pretty because you had your hair colored blue.
Yeah, I don't know. It is her character, because the real world she lives in is just as cool as if that cool.
That cat would keep a girl's attention plenty.
This, there's another dimension to it, and you would have to be very delicate about how you deal with this. But she is a prepubescent girl, and there's like this idea of like, what does it mean to become an adult, to become a woman? And you've got this character who's got the giant endowments that could represent something that she's afraid of, that this lady feels like she needs to put herself out there because of her body and all this stuff. Is that a good message for a girl who's becoming a woman to think about?
And that's what they sing in that song too, which there's an opportunity for her to say, I don't think that's right, or that's confusing, or something, have more of a running commentary or something. That's a great point too. But yeah, there's I think this is due for a remake in live action.
Yeah, I think
maybe Dakota Fanning can play the other mother.
She could play the other mother. Oh, that'd be a nice roll turn there for sure.
Did you ever see that clip of her and her sister Elle, where they're taking the lie detector test, and she asks her sister, "Did you once say that Jack Black was the sexiest man alive?"
Yeah.
And Elle Fanning is like blushing; she can't get over it. Then her sister Dakota asks her, she goes, "Would you leave your boyfriend for him if he became available?" And she's waiting, and Dakota says, "Jesus, Elle, you're taking an awful long time to answer that question."
Yeah.
So funny. Those two are very funny. We'll put them in a movie.
Put them in a movie together. Absolutely. But I like the voice acting. I think production wise, there's absolutely nothing wrong with Coraline. It's fantastic. And I enjoy Leica's studio films, all of them to various degrees, though my favorite is still Kubo and the Two Strings. For some reason, that film, and maybe it's partly the subject matter that hit very close to home with Kubo and his relationship with his mother. But I really enjoy that one. But this one, yeah, rewatching it now, I mean, Ian, your points have all been very valid tonight. And we've rewritten Coraline here a little bit, like we usually do on the Spoiler Room. We end up rewriting these movies, but I think there's a lot to admire here artistry wise. I think artistry wise. Hey, Joe, you're back again! Yay!
Look at that! It's an even better picture.
Oh, we got no audio though.
Joe, did you find some lights to put in the lamps? In the
he's on his phone now, I think.
I'm just saying that suddenly we can see him.
Yeah, we can see him.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah,
we can. Yes.
All right, good. Yeah, I just switched to my phone. I don't know what's up with my laptop. It said my signal strength is strong, but I keep getting booted off. So,
Joe, is this the real lighting? Is this the real lighting in your apartment?
No, it's the same lighting. I think it's just.
But I mean, the computer makes it look like you're in a cave.
I know. So. I'm seeing myself now, and I'm like, I don't know what it is.
It's the joys of phone cameras. So. We were actually going to just wrap it up here soon, Joe. But
no, I was going to say, Mark, now that we have Joe in all of his glory, we should just start the show over again.
Yeah, we'll just start the show all over again. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, next week, if it's like that, I'm just going to switch to my phone right away. I have 2 other laptops, so I'll try different stuff next week.
No worries. But you guys still, I hope, got your say. And I was just going to say, give your final thought with Coraline. We've kind of actually turned over the last hour our opinions of this film.
I know Ian doesn't want to take credit for that, and but yeah, we did all kind of look at it from a different perspective, which is, I think, story wise, it's not as strong as it is visually. Visually, it's a much stronger film. The characters are more caricatures. Ian pointed that out, and I think. I think just a lot of us visually were so enamored by it that maybe we missed a few things, but hey, I know Ian's not here to change our minds. He's here to state his opinion, and I appreciate that. And I don't know if you caught it earlier. I appreciate his consistency because the issues he had with this film are the same issues he had with Return to Oz, in that, um,
Yeah, kids
when,
aren't afraid.
yeah, she's just not afraid of anything. So I still enjoy it. Maybe like Jeff said, I might slightly go down a little bit on my my star rating, which was 4.5 coming in. Maybe I'll go 4 because maybe the story is a little lacking. I still enjoyed it a lot today rewatching it. So
Well,
I mean, I think for me, as my final thought is, I love the way it looks. I love the way it sounds. We didn't talk much about the music, but I think the music is very intriguing and moody. And I still will enjoy watching it. But I dropped from 4 to 3 stars. Thank you, Ian Simmons.
oh wow.
look at you.
And I remember Jeff saying this was one of his favorite movies of like the last quarter century.
Oh, I know.
Wow.
Been cut to the quick. I feel like the Wizard of Oz.
Speaking of music, Ibidem Trivia's got a little music tidbit, which I thought I recognized when Other Father was singing. I'm like, is that They Might Be Giants? Well, funny, I should mention that. The band They Might Be Giants wrote 10 songs for the movie, but a change in tone from a musical to a darker production meant that all but one were cut.
See, that's weird.
When Coraline's Other Father sings along with the piano, features John Linnell's voice, which is why it sounded like They Might Be Giants. I'm like, what are they doing in this? I don't remember that.
Man, they're lucky they got this thing out there at all, because that's a lot of compromises.
That is
on the road to his.
And it said, while the song during the end credits is often considered to be an additional song from the band, it was written by the film's composer. Additionally, although the band has stated that they intend to release the other songs created for the movie in other projects and albums, only one song has been officially released by them that was originally written for the film, which is Careful What You Pack, on the Elst album. The only other song known to be written for Coraline is the Ghost Children song, released by Leica Studios on their official YouTube channel as a deleted animatic in August of 2024 for the 15th anniversary of the film. The other 7 demo songs are currently considered to be lost media.
See, here's a thought. If you don't do a live action remake, do a Broadway show on it. That could play well in a Broadway show. Can you imagine the production design when you change the worlds and stuff like that? And, she could be crawling, like going down the aisle, getting closer to the new thing as the stage expands, and she's crawling towards that. Maybe I have to direct it.
You got write and direct, Jeff. We'll come and see it. But
I'll turn Coraline into a 4-star venture yet.
That's just me, though. When I heard that song,
Ian Simmons and I will rewrite it together.
When I heard that song, though, I was like, that's They Might Be Giants. I'm like, why is They Might? I'm like, how did the dad suddenly turn into the lead singer? I'm like, oh, okay. And now it explains why. So would have definitely been interested to see this as a musical, maybe played out more like, and maybe they were afraid of that it would play more out like the Nightmare Before Christmas. But I think they may have, and Ian, we know your final thought, but let's bring it home here, sir.
I will just let my assessment be the assessment, and again apologize for knocking this down in some folks' estimations over the course of the hour.
This is the point. Actually, we were asked who's the audience for the stream exactly. It's just film lovers and those of folks who are either fans or maybe not fans of the movie to come in and hear different perspectives, which you've definitely heard tonight. You get different perspectives. We got one last question. They go, why did they kill off the other YB? For dramatic elements, I think is why they killed off the other YB. That's
stakes.
It was just for stakes, just to give that, because as we mentioned, Coraline doesn't really even seem like she's in much danger in the other world at all at any point until you get to that, the reveal of the other mother being this weird spider lady. So maybe that's why they did, for the extra stakes, show you, oh, hey, look, people can be killed and we're not afraid to kill a main character. That could be why. I'm not sure. But everybody's brought up great questions. I still enjoy it, but yeah, it has been knocked down a little bit of a peg, not only on my rewatch, but to our discussion tonight. So this is why I love these discussions. I never know how they're going to go, but such as it is, it's an Animation Nation special. So tonight we get to spin once again the Wheel of Random. Yes, the Wheel of Random. For those of you who aren't familiar, this is how we choose what the next month's theme is going to be. So let's spin it and let's see what we get. It's going. The theme for March will be drawing spaces. What is drawing spaces? Well, that's a good question, even though I came up with it a while ago. Basically, drawing spaces are animated films taking place in space. So we've got some interesting ones. It'll be Titan AE, Treasure Planet. Well, not necessarily just in space, but just in spaceships or devices. So we're going to look at Atlantis, the Lost Empire. We're looking at Treasure Planet, Titan AE, and the Animation Nation film for next month will be Star Chaser, The Legend of Orion, which, if you're not familiar, you should be, because it's the closest thing to an animated Star Wars film that you may get. And I can't wait. By the look on the panel's faces.
Mark, it would be an opportunity for you to broaden your palette as well on the show by doing a television series, because Gilligan's Island famously went into space for one of their animated spin-offs. It was called Gilligan's Planet. I challenge you to watch the video on YouTube of the opening credits. It is truly a tragedy, just waiting to be an hour-long discussion of your show.
So there you have it, folks. Next month we'll be drawing spaces as in animated ship films. So yeah, and we're getting to two films that I think are lost Disney films that deserve more attention. So in all honesty, Treasure Planet and Atlantis, I don't think are talked about enough. So thank you, folks. And now, as always, this is where I give my crew their license to shill. So Joe, you got anything to shill, sir?
Well, it won't be for me or anything I'm involved with, but in the last couple of months, there's a YouTube channel called Pizza Flicks, and God knows they don't need me to promote them, because they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers. But they would just show old public domain movies, and ever since the last couple of years, when movies have been going into public domain in January, and we've started seeing old MGM titles, old Universal titles, old Paramount titles, they've been doing a really good job of putting things out there that I wasn't aware still existed. I don't think it had ever been released on home video in some cases. I excitedly messaged you guys like 2 weeks ago, because it is hard for me to find a movie with Bela Lugosi, Boris Karloff, Lon Chaney, Vincent Price, one of those guys, a horror movie with any of them that I hadn't seen yet. These guys found one from 1929, an old dark house movie called Unholy Night with Boris Karloff in it. And I'm like, I had no idea this still existed. I thought it was lost. I hadn't seen anything about it. And it just popped up on their channel, fully restored. And I'm like, because it's in the public domain now, this old MGM title that I'm saving for Halloween time is now available to me. And I'll be able to watch an old dark house movie featuring Boris Karloff that I've never seen before, which I haven't been able to say about a movie in that genre with these actors in decades. So they're doing great work over there. And I mean, it's weird when I go on their channel and I'm seeing like the Marx Brothers movies start to pop up, because I'm like, oh my God, the Marx Brothers are in public domain now, at least the first two movies. Little Caesar is in public domain now, so that's up there. So it looks, I'm kind of feeling good about the future of classic cinema now, because as they're going into public domain, piracy might actually save a lot of these older titles that probably would be completely lost to time otherwise.
Excellent plug.
Pizza Flicks YouTube channel.
Pizza Flicks YouTube channel. There you go, folks. And Mr. Jeff York, please, sir, plug away. The license to shill is yours.
Well, thank you, sir. I've already done 6 of the Best Picture nominees for the Oscar this year. I'm working on 4 others in the next week, and probably will be making them available for digital download purchase through my various platforms. So watch for those in case you're interested in having that for your Oscar party or just for your collectibles. I know it's not an action figure, but perhaps Annie Banks would like one of my sets of caricatures.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, check out it. He's far better writer. Actually, all these folks are far better writer than I am. That's why I do video. I'm a video guy. I got a face for radio. But anyway, so thank you, Jeff. Always interesting. And I love your caricatures. They're fantastic.
Wow, you're very kind. Thank you.
Very talented there. And another talented individual, license to shill is yours. Ian, please shill away.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also right here on YouTube. Do interviews and reviews and critics roundtables. And this Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central, I'll be pushing my powers of persuasion to their absolute limits when I try and convince the world that Luc Besson's Dracula is great. Unironically great.
Wow.
Yeah, so tune in for that one, 8 p.m. Central. Also, as I've mentioned before, I'm doing some writing now for CBR in their movies and TV space. So I'm doing a number of articles there. It's a lot of fun, so check me out there. And otherwise, I'm here, usually on Sunday nights, but in this case, a special Monday edition of the Spoiler Room, and I love these conversations.
And I do too, even when you turn our opinions, sir, which is not a bad thing, which is why we have these discussions, because that's what I love about the show, and I love about our audience who comment, and you find folks who make this show what it is giving different perspectives that you might not have thought of about films you are familiar or not familiar with. So that's what we try to do here on the Spoiler Room, and we hope you've enjoyed our shows so far. Yes, specialmarkproductions.com for all your Movie Man needs. I actually have a written review I did last week on the film Solo Mio, which is a rom-com, which is, you want to talk about being out of the Movie Man's wheelhouse. Solo Mio. And I did a write-up and from Angel Studios, no less. And you can see what I thought of that film. And yes, next week we will be talking Pan's Labyrinth, I do believe, is on deck for that one. So definitely going to be an interesting conversation for that. That will be back on our regular time of a Sunday night, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. So check that out. Plus, I have a couple of interviews dropping for a film that came out called Grizzly Night. I interviewed the director, and I'll be introducing the producer and a lead actress for that movie. And those will be dropping this week. So look for those interviews as well. And other things coming up. So like, subscribe, bells and whistles and all that here. We're almost up to 10,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. Have no idea how the hell that happens, but I thank each and every one of you. And until next time, we'll just say a good night, everyone.
Good night.